Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at continue and break, one of the most useful things that you have to do with while loops or loops in general. Now what a continue and break does is it gives you the ability to either start a loop over from the top or to immediately exit a loop at a specific point. This is a fantastic tool for basically ripping through lists and stopping when you find the item that you're looking for. Let's take a look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create myself a list of integers here. I'll call it integers, and you'll probably notice something about my list of integers here. But in case you don't notice it, it's there. We only have one even number. And what I want to do is I want to go through this list, and I want to identify the first number in this list that is even. Actually, we'll keep going here just to make this a little bit messier. Ha 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 ha. Now it's nice and messy. This is an interesting puzzle here. We're going to have to figure this one out. But before I do that, let's create a lambda function for this. Copy paste is awesome. So what we have here is we have a quick little lambda function that determines if a number is even. Nice. This will return true if it's even, it'll return false if it's not even. Hey, look at that, going back in time. So let's go ahead and zip through these real quickly here, and we'll do it the wrong way, and then we'll do it the right way. So let's do it the wrong way first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say while, let's see, actually we could do this with a for loop. For int, oh, that's dangerous, for I in integers. Print, let's see, we want the first value that's even. Oh no, this is going to cause some problems. Good. Let's make two even numbers to really make the problems worse. If, let's see here, I is even, this feels so awkward, is even. If I is even, print, let's see, we'll do an F string here. We'll quote, I is even. Nice. Wow, that was pretty smooth, actually. And you could see here that it actually worked perfectly. But here's the problem. We specifically wanted this list to end when we find the first even number. So what you'll see here is we've perfectly identified both even numbers in the list, but we really want it to stop when we get to that one. So you're sitting here going, how are we going to do this? Well, we could theoretically do a brute force method, which I'm not really a big fan of. We could take the value of I and set it to the length. Oh my gosh, this is so wrong. We could set I to the value of the length here. So if we ran this again, it'll freak out. I believe we have to do -1 here. I think that's going to be -1. Ugh. Yep, you can see it basically exploded here. Ugh. I fiddled with that quite a bit, and I didn't like any of those solutions. Ugh. So the good news is Python has a built-in function to get out of a loop, and that command is the break command. Now the break command is pretty slick because what we can do with it is we can simply type in break whenever we want to bail out of the loop. So if I were to run this code here, you'll notice it says 12 is even, and that's it. It ends immediately. You can actually see here that it just boop, and we're done with that. So our item 12, even though we also had a 20 here, as soon as we hit this item, we detected that it was even, and we broke out of the loop. Yes, nice. That is actually a pretty handy function. Let's see if we can make a while loop version of the same code here. Okay, we can do that. So we'll say we'll get old school here. We'll say index equals 0. We'll say while inx is less than the length of integers. We'll keep it nice and simple here. Then we're simply going to say if, let's see here, integers. You can see why this is a little bit messier. Integers of, what do we say, index. Actually, we have to do is even, because that's what we called it. This is getting a little messy. Print, we'll go ahead and grab that. We'll just steal my own code here. Print that one in here. But since we're doing a while loop, we have to make sure we increment index there. Let's go run that one again. Et voila. And you can see instantly that it had no difficulty in basically identifying that even number, and it worked the exact same way. You can actually see this is slightly messier. Again, why for loops? These two do the exact same thing, but you can see them kind of side by side now, and you could also see why the break command is so darn helpful for basically bailing out of a loop. Now, there's other fun uses for the break command too, and this is one of my favorite uses here, and that's basically keep going until we get it right. So I'm going to go ahead and type in something scandalous. I'm going to say while true. This is an infinite loop. If I were to execute this, well, I have to give it something to do. I'm not going to run it. This would keep running forever until we basically shut down the program. Again, this is because this is always going to be a true statement. But what I want to do is I want to ask somebody for the password. I'm going to say password equals input. What is the password? I'm going to go ahead and ask there if password, of course, there's only one correct answer here, equals swordfish, swadfish, sword, snowfish, break. else we'll go ahead and print try again. Now watch this. Now if I run this, you'll see what is the password. Blah. Try again. Groucho Marx. Hee hee. Nope. Swordfish. Boop. And you can see that it exits immediately because the break command was executed here. And that is one of the greatest methods to basically make sure somebody does something correctly. Now, you can get really, really sophisticated with this, and we can actually use this to build really, really, really useful functions, such as items that will only run like to a certain point. Now, let's go ahead and put together one of my favorite functions, and that is the getNumber function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function that only returns numbers when you're doing an input. For example, if you want to do math or something like that. And we're going to go so far as to not only get a number, we're also going to get it within a specific range. Function that returns a number, returns an integer. Let's do it. Returns an integer in a specified range. Range. Hey, look, I can spell today. Nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one getNumber. And I'm going to go ahead and define our ranges here. I'm going to define the range as min, and I'm going to go ahead and say max. And we're going to be careful here. We're going to go ahead and put some default values here. I'll do 1e minus 9, and we'll say 1e9, 1d9. That could be fun too. So this is where it's going to get tricky. How are we going to know that the user gave us a number? So let's go ahead and create ourselves an initial loop here. And I'm going to make this an infinite loop to keep it real, real simple here. So I'm going to say while true, and I'm going to say n equals input, give me a number. Now, the cool thing here is the user can type in anything. Again, we haven't talked about the input command yet, but the cool thing about input is it always returns a string. So we need to see if the user gave us just digits, or did they accidentally put in a space, or maybe they put in like an E or something like that just to make our lives miserable. So let's go ahead and eliminate one of the problems first by stripping off all the white space as well as lowercasing everything. And again, we don't need to lowercase. What am I doing? We'll just strip off the white space just in case they press space bar or something like that. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to convert this n into an integer and see what happens. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in something called try. And what it's going to attempt to do is it's going to attempt to convert this into an integer. So I'm going to say convert int n. Now, if this fails, it will trigger this block of code called except. So I'm print, we'll go ahead and use a little f string here, quote. What do we want? N cannot be converted into an integer. Nice. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and make my code go back up to the top of my loop. Now you're sitting here going, oh, you could just put something down here and get down. But this is where the second half of break comes, called continue. Continue will cause the loop that is currently executing, which is going to be this guy right here, to start back from that point and actually begin another round. Now, this is really, really important for us, so because we need to go ahead and convert the number into a number before we actually test to see whether or not it works. So now we can go ahead and check to see if the number is in range because we've now converted it into an integer. So I'm simply going to say if n is greater than min, actually we'll say greater than or equal to min, and n is less than or equal to max. Return n. Else, we're simply going to go ahead and bounce it back to them. Print, we'll be nice and professional here. Again, software development, n is not between, let's see here, we said min and max. What a beautiful function. Now, your brain's probably saying, do we technically need to put a break or something right here? And the answer is no. Now, the reason we don't need to put in a break here is on account of the fact that, chain comparison is making fun of me. It's because I didn't put min and max between it, but that's okay. The reason I don't need to do that is because when we slam into this, we're actually going to go back up to the top of that loop again. Now, the reason we don't need a break is because if we're returning a value, we're done with this function. We're going to be bailing from it. So it's actually going to work pretty well. So this is one of my favorite little Python things here. So let's go ahead and come down here. Yeah, this thing was making me crazy. I had to fix it. All right, so now we have our little function here, and it's only going to return numbers for us. Let's give it a try. So what I'm going to do is get number, and we'll say the minimum is going to be 0, and the maximum is going to be 100. So now if I run my code here, it's going to ask me for the password. I wonder why. Swordfish, press enter, give me a number. Let's try -5. You'll see that -5 is not between those two values. That checks. So let's try 5. 5 cannot be converted into an integer. Oh, notice it restarted my loop, by the way. Now, if I do 5 and press enter, you'll notice that it happily goes ahead and processes it and says it's okay. As a matter of fact, it'll actually return that value of 5 for me. And the reason I know it's going to return the value of 5 is I could do something really, really easy here, is I could just print it. So now if I were to run this again real fast, what's the password? What's the word for each choice? And if I say 5, you'll see 5 comes back because it went ahead and grabbed that number for me. I find this very, 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 very helpful. And it's one of the millions and millions of little user functions that people like to use. And you also get to see the continue in action. We definitely would not want to attempt to leave this statement out. If we did, if you had something that wasn't converted to an integer, it would try to see whether or not that string was between minimum and maximum, which of course would cause all sorts of nastiness here, and they would actually break my code. So you can see my continue pops me back up, but it doesn't matter how many times I try to put it in, it'll only work when I get it right, and I actually pass that value back to me. So again, a nice little piece of information there that we can utilize over and over and over again. And one of the reasons why it's so great and why people really, really like to use while loops for the purposes of basically asking things over and over again. Let's go ahead and show you another example of a while loop here in action. Again, great little use. Let's go ahead and create some options here. We can look, we can jump, and we can go west. I don't know, kind of thing like that. Let's say we want the user to only be able to pick an option from those 3 choices. Let's go ahead and put everything we've got together to make this one work. I'll get myself my while true. I will say print choose your option. And we can be all nice and professional like this, but I'm going to be super lazy here. I'll say for option and options, print, we'll print an option here, so make it nice and easy. And of course, we do not want to run this code because this is an infinite loop that's ready to rock. So what I'm going to do now is I'll ask the user for an option, a choice, equals input. Again, we're going to the input command. We'll get into that one pretty soon. Oh, don't know, I'll do double arrows or something like that. I'll be professional. I'll go ahead and lowercase it. And I'll strip all the white space off of it so people can't accidentally. It looks pretty good. Now we can simply say if choice in options, print you chose. Actually, we can make this an F string. You chose. Now let's see your choice. Now we can break. Instead, we can now say they did not make a right choice. Else, print F. You chose choice. And this is not an option. Now you're probably saying, do I need to use myself? Do I need to put a continue here to go back up? Theoretically, you could. You could come in here and type in continue, and that would send us back up to the top here. But as you can see, it's actually a little grumpy at us. Well, actually, it's grumpy at us at this. This is a bit of a logical error on account of the fact that we just don't need it because it's going to loop itself back up to the top anyway. Let's go ahead and give it a try. So it's going to ask me for a password. I'm going to say the password swordfish. It's going to ask me for a number. And it's going to ask me, choose your option. Throw. It's going to say, throws, you chose throw, and this is not an option. Choose your option. Failure. Failure is not an option. Choose your option. We'll look this time. And you can see you chose look. And you can see that our loop also exited and made it much, much easier for us. So as you can probably see, when it comes to whiles, they work much better when you have breaks and continues. And as I was saying before with continues and breaks, is they also can be used in for loops, especially like in our example a little bit earlier when we saw the two kind of side by side. So you can see exactly where we can use these inside of our program. Enjoy.